Okay, Zayana, this is a quick video. I'm trying to do this without or before waking Evelyn up, or without her waking up, I hope. I want to look at a few things that we've gone over before, but real quickly, in the next, hopefully I can do this in the next 4 minutes at least. I want to cover, what's this, 3 things. One, something called the quadratic equation. The quadratic equation. I sound a little like My Fair Lady, but pronounce it right and memorize what you're looking at. And here's how it goes. You'll see this so many times you ought to see it in your sleep. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Or that's 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, depending on how you want to say it. Anyway, drill that in your head. You can't do you can't continue without learning that. Now, the thing about this, which I found very funny when I was learning this, is that if you had only had this in the beginning, it could have solved. So you could have solved problems in chapter 9. Rather easy, not easily, but you would have had maybe a simpler approach to solving some of the problems in chapter 9, and we'll go over that. I also want to talk about what a root is. Roots are when f of x equals 0, and we'll get through that. And the symbol or the type of drawing that you'll get used to real quick is called a parabola. A parabola, and if you had to graph it, it sort of looks like the graph I'm showing, where there's an x-axis here, and this, we call this the y-axis, but for our intents and purposes, we'll call it f of x, the function of x, meaning. So if x is this is what the function of x is, or if x is this is what y is. But f of x is probably more appropriate. And although the shape of it is called a parabola, there are certain aspects of a parabola that you should be able to point out, like the lowest point. The lowest point is called the vertex. Vertex. Okay, back to chapter 9. Quick review. Let's say you had, and this is only, wow, this is 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes already. Okay, let's say you had 5x squared plus 1x minus 6 equals 0, and you need to factor this and find out the 2 times where x equals 0. Okay, here's how you would do it. You would, in chapter 9, you would say, okay, I got my 5x here, my 1x, and now I have to look at this here. This is my this is because this is negative, I know the signs are going to be opposite, so we can go plus, minus, and we have to figure out the factors of 6, and we could end up with a table and just go through like all this trial and error, which is something that I know you don't like, and who really does. But if we did it out, and I think you did a problem like this already, you would say, okay, there's this, none of these work. Let's hope that this one works. There's a 6 here, alright, and a 1 here, and if I had to FOIL that out, it would I'd get back up to the original. Okay, but that would be like a lot of trial and error and a long laundry list of what it would take to get to that point. Now let's say you needed to, again, you're trying to find out, battery's low, where those things equal 0. Hopefully the battery doesn't run out. So 5x plus 6 equals 0. 1x minus 1 equals 0. 5x equals negative 6. X equals negative 6 over 5. Right, real easy. Over here, x equals, you bring the 1 over, x equals 1. Okay, simply put. Now, it's easy to do this, but you can imagine how much more difficult it might be if, let's say, that 5x were a 10x, 15x, where you had to figure out all the factors of that, meaning this a, this is the a, this is the b, this is the c. If you had to find out all the factors of that coefficient of the x squared, it could get really difficult, right? And you'd be doing trial and error forever and ever and ever. So that's why some bright person came up with something called the quadratic equation. Now, the quadratic equation works for easy problems and difficult problems, as long as they're in this form: x squared, ax squared plus bx plus c. And don't get caught up in the fact that this is a minus here, but you get the point. X squared plus, you could say it's a plus negative c. So anyway, it's if it's in this form, anything in that form can use this equation: minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you can find out where x equals 0. It is 6 minutes already. This is crazy. Okay, so let's try that out. Let's try that out. And this will be easier said than done. I'm gonna try and erase. Yeah, nothing wants to erase. Let's see. Alright. Amen. Okay. Sorry about this. I need a bigger board. I need a better board. Okay. Alright. So let's try to plug everything in. We first have to know what the A is. You gotta be kidding. We know what the A is, which you know. The B is this, and the C is this. So once you know that, and that's self-explanatory. You start plugging things in using this equation. Okay, so sort of watch what I'm doing. Negative. The b is 1, so I'm going to say negative 1. I'll substitute in some cases, and I won't substitute in other cases. Plus or minus the square root of 1 squared is 1 minus 4 times a is 5, and b is, or c rather, is negative 6 all over 2 times a. Well, if a is 5, then 2 times a would be 10. Okay. Now, this is using the quadratic equation again. So, negative 1 plus or minus square root of 1. However you want to do this. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times negative 6 is negative 120. So minus negative 120. Right? Or it ends up being plus. Right? Plus 120. Right? Negative, negative. So that's negative 20 times negative 6. However you want to do it. Right? Negative 20 times negative 6 gives you positive 20. All over 10. Make a better 10. Okay. Negative 1 plus or minus. What's the square root of 1 plus 121? Well, that's this over 10. Okay. Yeah, fingers work just as good. And what does that mean? Okay, negative 1 plus or minus. Negative 1 plus or minus. The square root of 121 is 11 all over 10. Okay? Now, I hope the jerkiness of the video doesn't mess you up. This is just negative 1. So negative 1 plus 11 is 10. Right? That's a positive 10 over 10. And that equals 1. Oh, that's one of the ones that we got already. Now again, this was an easy one that you could do almost by just trial and error, but again, if it were more complicated, you wouldn't want to use this that kind of pattern. So if everything holds to form, the next answer ought to be negative 6 over 5. But let's see. We're just checking it out. So that was negative 1 plus 11. Now we'll say negative 1 minus 11 over 10. That's going to equal negative 12 over 10. And if you simplify that, negative 6 over 5. Voila. Voila. All done by the quadratic equation, 10 minutes, 30 something seconds.